this opportunity to appreciate the presentation that we've just received. And in a big way, it was assisted because then I get to skip much of the things that I could have felt the need to get into. I would like to greet all of you. If I was at church, I would have easily said, the Holy Spirit has given me a different topic, and I would easily avoid your topic and, and do another one. But I don't think I have that latitude here. I love the people of Zimbabwe in general, but I like, more than love, the people of Matebeleland, the people that are going through, in my mind, what the Palestinians are going through. Occupation by one evil regime to the next evil regime. And at times, when you're in the diaspora, which I spent much of my life, I was there where you are in the UK, and I spent much of my time in South Africa. You could feel very, very discouraged. But as you will see when I come to the close of my presentation, there is no storm that lasts forever. There is hope for our people. There is hope for this nation. The topic given to me, and I was talking to somebody, and I said, this is a thesis. This is a whole terms lecture, but let's see if we can squeeze it into 30 minutes roundabout there, so we have an opportunity to take questions. The subject says, what were Matebeleland Grand Wars of 1893? How did these wars define Matebeleland's collective identity, values, beliefs, solidarity in resisting occupation and oppression? How can the defined collective identity, values, beliefs, and solidarity be restored to guide the Matebele people to restore and gain their lost human rights, pride, dignity as a people? The Ndebele nation, like any other in the world, is largely defined by its experiences, achievements, and challenges. In that regard, Matebeleland's Grand Wars of 1893 have hugely shaped Matebeleland into what it is today. Whether it was by design or context, it is the variance of the Matebeleland kingdom which earned it two essential foes. And these two essential foes are namely Britain, which is your host country, from 1893 to 1980, and from 1893 to present, which is Mashonaland. The first Matebele War, which was 1893 to 1894. Since the invasion of Mashonaland and the hosting of the Union Jack in what is today called Harare in 1890, Cecil John Rhodes was secretly planning the same for Matebeleland. He indicated this through the order in council declared in 1891 that Matebeleland, Mashonaland, and Bechuanaland were the British protectorate. In 1893, Mashonaland Kekli thieves, and as I was doing my research, somebody said to me, it's possible that this was a pretext for the invasion of Matebeleland. But history will record that the Mashonaland Kekli thieves came to Matebeleland and stole a head of the Ndebele Kekli, and then sought refuge within the walls of the British Fort Victoria. Consequently, a large Ndebele raiding party reacted by attacking the Mashonas, which then gave Rhodes the pretext I was talking about. The opportunity under the pretext of retaliation to attack the kingdom of King Lopengula. British administrator Lenda Jameson set up that 1893 campaign to attack the Ndebele. The three British columns met and headed to Bulawayo with the objective of attacking and overcoming the Matebeleland or Matebele and annex Matebeleland to be part of the British South African Company territory. In this case, Mashonaland, which had been taken over in 1890, without any non-resistance by the Mashona, they were under the command of Major Patrick Forbes. On 25 October 1893, as the British forces crossed the Shangani River and set up their camp towards the Matebele warriors, numbering a whopping 6,000, attacked them. But the British already had superior technology in terms of their armory. So due to this superior technology by the whites of their weaponry, the Martin Henry rifles and Maxim machine guns, hundreds of Ndebele warriors were killed as a result. They retreated on the invader side, fewer than 10 on the invader side, fewer than 10 members of the column were killed or wounded because of the superior weapons rather than the valor which won the day for the Rhodes men. The British proceeded to Bulawayo, King Lopengula's capital, or the Kraal. Along the way, they were initially thwarted by a frontal attack by a better organized and decisive Matebeleland force at Mbembes. On 1st November of the same year, the encounter is also known as the Gandande battle. That became the decisive battle of the 1893 British Matebele War. It demonstrated the unsurmountable courage of the Matebele warriors. The gigantic Matebele force comprised 80,000 spearmen and 20,000 Martin Henry riflemen against fewer than 700 soldiers of the British South African police. In the end, the Ndebele were no match against the Maxim guns. Also, some Matebele had Martin Henry rifles, but poor training contributed to their inefficient use and subsequent defeat. After that defeat, King Lopengula burned his capital of Bulawayo and fled northwards towards modern-day Lupane in Matebele North. Rather than allow his capital and himself to be captured by the British, on November 4, 1893, the British finally captured the smothering ruins of Bulawayo, King Lopengula's capital. A detachment of troops under Major Allen Wilson set in pursuit of the king and his entourage. They followed him across the Shangani River on 4 December 1893, but were cut off by the king's brave Amabuto. Efforts by the British commanding officer Forbes column to reinforce the patrol were too little too late. The fierce battle that ensued eventually resulted in the killing of 34 white invading soldiers. The patrol is generally referred to as the Shangani Patrol. Unfortunately, that battle did not overturn the misfortunes of the Matebele, but drew an indelible line on the pride of the Ndebele warriors and their nation to this day. Their exploits were no mean feat by any standard. Then the British South African Company controlled most of Matebeleland country. White settlers continued to freely arrive. The 1893 campaign had succeeded for the Rhodes and the British South African Company. Ndebele cattle were looted and divided among Jameson mercenaries. Vast tracts of land were taken and given to the mercenaries as a reward. Bulawayo began to be transformed into a European-style city. We go to the next question, which is how did these wars define Matebeleland collective identity, beliefs, and solidarity in resisting occupation and oppression? The war defined Matebeleland's collective identity in a number of ways. The Matebeleland warriors lived and fought and died together, which is a very important point, that notwithstanding the advanced nature of the weaponry which the enemy army had. I'm sorry, is there something? Notwithstanding, is Mzuli saying something?
No.
Okay. Maybe if he could mute his gadget, then it will not be a disruption. So I was making a point that the Matebele warriors lived, fought, and died together. And I'm going to come back to this point when I do the closing on how can we revive our nation again. They protected King Lopengula all the way across the Shangani River, despite the earlier defeat at the Mbembes, Okanda and the Beki. The battles defined the Ndebele as very patriotic and selfless warriors whose history in fighting against oppressors and oppression in Africa can never be wished away. The Matebele were united in their resistance of the occupation of Matebeleland and the oppression of the people of Matebeleland. The trend continued until the white government was removed in 1980. How can the defined collective identity, values, beliefs, solidarity be restored to guide the Matebele people to restore and gain their lost human rights, pride, dignity as a people? Now, and I'm leaving my notes a bit here to make the point. Those of you that are overseas are watching as this thing unfolds in Zimbabwe. And as you know, I would have wanted to be with you there in person to give this speech. My firstborn happens to be British, and we had arranged that he's going to accompany me, and I introduce him to you, and I found myself in a storm here at home. And some of you are asking yourself, how did he get himself involved here? And I'm trying to answer this question of fighting against the violation of the human rights of our people as a value which is learned from the previous wars that the Matebele people fought. There was an election on the 23rd of August, 2023. And everyone was campaigning, and all the major political parties were campaigning. It so happened that the major opposition leader came to Bulawayo at White City, very close to the election. And I caught him verbatim. When I become president, I want to make sure that the people of Matebeleland stop being deputies. I want to have even the commissioner of police being Ndebele, even president. It must stop this thing of Hararizing Matebeleland. End quote. Lo and behold, when the list of names came for who is going to represent Bulawayo in Parliament as a Senate, so senators are just appointed. They don't go through the ballot in the traditional sense, where people go and vote for them. So the party chooses. When it came to number 1, the same leader who had said these words chose someone who is not a Ndebele person, chose someone from Mashonaland. Number 1 from Mashonaland. Number 2 from Mashonaland. Number 3, Matebeleland. Number 4, Mashonaland. We said, okay, we see that those that are in the same party with him must have the capacity to draw his attention to his words and say, look at what you said, look at what you are doing. And then we went to look at what was there for councillors. Ward 1, which is in the city, right in the city of Bulawayo. He took someone who can't utter a single word in the local language, a single word. This person had just come into the office to assist his office, and he put him there to be a councillor. And he took many others and he put them in different areas. And we said, okay, they are going to deal with this. And there came time after the elections to start putting people in the positions. There was already consensus in Bulawayo that the mayor is going to be Senator David Coulter. There was consensus. Nobody was arguing, largely because of his history in the struggle and how he has been fighting for justice and reparations as far as the Kukuraundi victims are concerned. But which left the position of deputy mayor opened. And the argument by most Matebele people was, if we are getting a white person, whom by all accounts we have accepted as one of our own, we must at least, for a deputy mayor, get the descendants of the king, because after all, this is the king's palace, Bulawayo. So there was consensus around the name of Councillor Dumisani Nkomo, who happens to be the grandson of our late icon, Father Zimbabwe, the late Dr. Joshua Nkomo. As we're getting closer to these elections, rumors start surfacing that the leader of the party wants to impose his clansman as a deputy mayor. So first of all, they tried to persuade councillors to vote, and numbers did not favor them. Enough of our councillors were conscious enough that that's an affront to the people of Matebeleland to take someone of that ethnicity and put them in the king's palace to lead the king's people. And a lot of conversations were had. Of course, some of us, because we live in this city, we leaders in this city, were involved in those conversations to make sure that that does not happen. I remember the day when this election was going to happen, I received a call that a caucus has been called in the office for 10 a.m. With all the councillors that are going to vote. The councillors went for 10 a.m. caucus. That caucus was moved to 12. I happened to be in some meeting as well, and then I was told that the leader of the party has dispatched someone from Smart South currently, but ethnicity-wise comes from Maswingo like him, to come to Bulawayo, and someone from his office, and I can't remember the third person from where, to come and order the councillors from Bulawayo not to nominate or elect anyone else except this preferred choice of his who accidentally happens to be his clansman. Now, you could say that's internal party processes. That's being tone deaf. Okay, we could excuse that. But when we reach a stage where councillors, and we are lucky this time, we have by and large, most of them have a junior degree, and a quite number of them have a master's degree and are now pursuing doctoral studies. So these are quite educated people who can formulate, who can be persuaded, who can persuade, who are ambitious, who want to be given an opportunity pursuant to the Constitution to pursue their progression and upward trajectory in their chosen career, which is politics. So they get intimidated enough. If you go against this, we're going to recall you. As a matter of fact, if we get to a stage where there needs to be a vote, all of you must take photos and send proof that you voted according to what you've been instructed to do. So I hear about that. I get very discouraged. They chickened out. They were scared to defy. They vote exactly like that. The issue leaks to the media. Now I'm explaining my involvement in this thing just before I make the point of solidarity and standing up against oppression. The issue leaks to the media. Once it leaks to the media, the party dispatches their spokesperson for Matebeleland or for Bulawayo, who also happens not to be a descendant of the Matebele people, and goes to the media, denies everything which they did and say there was no such a thing, it was an open process, everyone was allowed to contest. Those that are saying that are just jealousy that they were not chosen, they didn't do a proper work. Now, I knew they were lying, and I started to agree with what this famous figure now in the country, Sengezo Chabang, had said before the election, because he had raised this issue, that we now have 12 MPs at risk of not participating because the process in Bulawayo was run by people who are not from Bulawayo. Whereas in Masvingo and everywhere else, the leaders charged with taking care of these processes are from those areas. So I started listening closely, and as he made more approaches, tried to get this situation remedied, no one was interested. It was brought to my attention that now they want to make sure that when it comes to Victoria Falls, again, a clansman of the president of this party becomes the mayor there. But then I was assured that don't worry, Victoria Falls residents are already mobilized enough. They are going to resist this. This is far stranger than fiction. The deputy mayor, who had just been installed into that position under the most cruel, under the most cynical, and under the most undemocratic way, became part of the people now who were now forcing down the throats of the Victoria Falls councillors. This mayor candidate who comes from the same place with the president of this party. And most of you will not know this. The issue of the deputy mayor of Bulawayo and the attempts and the manner how they did it to take people who are not from Matebeleland to then intimidate our councillors into installing someone who's not from Matebeleland to be a leader amongst them is exactly what broke the proverbial camel's back, and it brought us to where we are. So that is when, after people mobilized and spoke to Sengezo Chabang made him the interim SG, ordered him to take the steps which he has since taken. Recall these people, bring sanity, give our people an opportunity to lead. And we are where we are now. Of course, the enemy depends on the pioneer column, which is some amongst us, who then couch this thing under Zanu agents. You are bringing back Zanu through the back door. We are living in oppression. There is no greater oppression than those who know better, than those who promise to be an alternative, than those who promise to be democratic in practices publicly, and yet privately they become worse than the ones that they are claiming to free us from. So the values we learned and the solidarity posture that someone like me is taking, notwithstanding the death threats, notwithstanding the insults, notwithstanding all the propaganda machinery turned up to fight, what some of us are doing is to show up solidarity, not only with Chabam, but with the Matebele child who is being disenfranchised, who's being disadvantaged, who has his right and the right taken away to stand up for a position here in the land of their forefathers. You will be happy to know this. After the recall of that deputy mayor, who's my friend, by the way, I must be honest with you, when I bump to him at different places, it doesn't matter whether I've got 10 people in my company or 20 people, he makes it a point that he buys them cold drink. So this is not personal. It's not personal at all. He is my personal friend. Yesterday, I'm hearing this from good authority, that the city councillors elected a Mama Makumalo to be the deputy mayor. And if I'm not mistaken, this is the first time that this city is going to have a female at that position. We are aiming very soon to have a female as a mayor, but we will take her as a deputy mayor for now. But to even make as an icing on top, she is a Kumalo. Umntwana inkosi, yi-princess, esisesigodlweni kahle kahle sabokhokho bakhe, nguye osengu-deputy mayor lapha ekade sokungene khona umuntu wokuza. The question was, how do these values that we see demonstrated during these two wars, how do we emulate them, or how do they inform us in this process of the restoration of the Mtwakazi nation? I said to you, I'll come back to this point, that the Bele warriors, number one, lived together. Number two, they fought together. Number three, they died together in protection of the king. They would rather, that's the choices they made, burn the palace so that the invading enemies do not get anything. I want to thank this Mtwakazi restoration lecture, because it gives us an opportunity to say to our brothers and sisters who are critical, who think that these actions are taken for self-enrichment and for self-help, that no, it's not true. I have been seized in much of my public life with the issues around Impilo, around UPH. When I was at UPH, I had a doctor call me aside. And he said to me, "Honorable, please do something." I said, "What is happening?" He said, "I am probably in this shift the only one who can speak Ndebele. All of these can speak Ndebele. And when our old people come here, you hear them say, Ukokolo, I've told her that I can't hear Ndebele, but she's busy. Tanami ngcela. I've just told her to sit down there because I can't hear what she's saying. And our old people sit there throughout the night without anyone whatsoever assisting them. Surely something has to be done. Surely something has to give. And that spurred me into making contact now with NAST to find out, when you are training these kids for medicine, do you have quotas to say, we have a situation in Matebeleland, so this situation needs to be addressed one way or the other? And the first year where I got involved, where I eventually had to manage to put some Ndebele children there, there wasn't a single Ndebele child who was going to be trained as a doctor. A single. Now, the wars which we are talking about today were fought largely because the invading armies wanted to dispossess us of our land, wanted to dispossess us of our wealth, wanted to dispossess us of our culture, wanted to dispossess us of our being and even our dignity. What dignity do we retain if our children cannot train to be doctors at a university right here? Largely because at schools where they are going, there are no scientific labs. Largely because the language of learning which is used by the teachers is largely foreign to them. What good are we as a people even if our children cannot even get cleaning jobs? 2 days ago, I get a call from a husband on one of the CCC activists. That husband calls me and say, Senator, I'm saying, how are you? Say, I'm okay. Then because we know each other. Then he says, you know what? I was not happy about this thing of yours because it has an impact on my wife. But I'm here at the airport to pick my wife. As I'm here at the airport, you will be shocked to know that from the top management, this is Joshua Mqaboko Airport, from the top management right to the cleaning person, our children are not there. They are not accommodated. Now, if that doesn't move you, then unfortunately, you don't understand the struggle. Then you have no idea of what the struggle is about. What is the point of having people in parliament supposedly representing you, but have nothing to do with you, are not pushing anything that has to do with you? I'm looking for a court here because I'm trying to attend to this issue of the importance or the take home from these values and the solidarity which we learn from these wars that we spoke about. I saw something here as my brother was presenting, and I just want to quote from you, from the United Nations, one of the United Nations agencies, which is UNESCO, right? There is a school in Lupane. I originally come from Cholocho. That's where I was born. But my father then moved to Lupane in a place called Lusulu, in a village called Lupaswane. And I think the primary school there is called Kuchulwa, something like that. In that primary school, it's only the headmaster and the deputy head who are Ndebele, who can speak fluent Ndebele. The rest of the teachers are from Mashonaland. Primary school. Headmaster, deputy headmaster, Ndebele. The rest are from Mashonaland. Let me read you a quote from UNESCO, because I just want to show you that if you thought that the wars we are discussing about are over, you are fooling yourself. We are now engaged in a more sophisticated war. Just like the Ndebele warriors, when they came and found the British with an advanced technology of weaponry. That is where we are now. We think it's a small thing of Chabang just being bought by Zanu to withdraw people, and it's more sophisticated than that. Listen to what it's a bit long so that you can get, but I just want to read for you. It's something you can Google. It's about mother tongue education. So this is an article on 18 February 2022. So it's in the UNESCO page. It says every year on 21st February, the world celebrates International Mother Language Day, which was established at the initiative of Bangladesh by the UNESCO General Council in 1999. The day is an essential platform to promote the importance of cultural and linguistic diversity and multicultural for peaceful and sustaining societies. UNESCO has been leading the way and advocating for multilingual education based on the mother tongue. From the earliest years of schooling, that's what UNESCO is saying, and they will tell you why. From the earliest years of schooling, I've just told you of a primary school that has got only a headmaster and a deputy headmaster as Ndebele. The rest are Shona. That can't converse in the mother tongue of the students. This is what UNESCO is saying. A mother tongue, rather from the earliest years of schooling, research, this is now research, research shows that education in the mother tongue is a key factor for inclusion and quality learning. It also improves learning outcomes. You would have seen every time how Matebeleland North performs very poorly on grade 7 results and O-level, A-level. And you wonder why Matebeleland is lagging behind. How can it not lag behind when we are told that mother tongue education is a key factor when it comes to education or learning outcomes and academic performance? This is crucial, especially in primary school, to avoid knowledge gaps and increase the speed of learning and comprehension. And most important, multilingual education based on the mother tongue empowers all learners to fully take part in society. It fosters mutual understanding and respect for one another and helps preserve the wealth of cultural and traditional heritage that is embedded in every language around the world. Now, because of time, because I want to be able to take your questions, you can really spend time going through this page, and you will realize that the ills we're dealing with now when it comes to issues of substance abuse, when it comes to teenage pregnancy, when it comes to poor educational outcomes in Matebeleland, they are informed largely by the fact that you are allowing decision makers about yourselves, about your children, about your culture, about your governance, about your everything to come from Mashonaland. And I told you at the beginning that the Matebele people have been in war, first with the British, secondly with the Shona. With the British ended in 1980. With the Shona is carrying on now. If you don't believe me, look at some of these proxies of the ruling party. There was a tweet last week which said Kukraundi was a necessary evil. Since Kukraundi, we've never had issues with the Ndebele people. I can't remember that boy's name. I really don't have time for him. But those of you that are following know who I'm talking about. So you have these loosely statements that are made. There was one that was made, I think, by Maponga to say we deserved Kukuraundi, something like that. And there's never a statement from the ruling party or from the government itself to say, no, 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 no. Why? Because my view says these statements are accepted, that we must be ruled, that we must be told what to do, that we must be reduced to second, in other cases third, and sometimes even fifth class citizens. Now, this is what I want to leave with you, Program Director. My father, who was a president of a very large organization in Africa and the deputy president of the international branch of the international corporate structure. He was the vice president there and the president in Africa. So he said to me, son, when I went to parliament, he said to me, son, anything you are going to discuss in that parliament with regards to Matebeleland, don't believe it until you see an item in the budget about it. Anything that anyone is serious about, he will budget for it, and it will be part of the budget. And that is when I knew that this whole talk about fixing Kukuraundi and what was nothing, because I've never seen anything about it. If this group is to learn something and start to do something, pushing back against the flagrant violation of the human rights of the Matebele people, is to begin to fundraise, plan, and be deliberate about your interventions. So we will be clear whether we start by funding teachers. We will then have to be part of our schooling system to prepare our kids. Start identifying kids who will be scientists, who will be doctors, who will be engineers, who will be what. It's going to be a massive program, a deliberate program. Conversations like these are necessary, but they are not the end in themselves. They are part of the process where we discuss these things and then do something about it. Now, we are descendants of a great nation. The Ndebele people, and you don't have to take my word for it, you can take, I think it's called Apostle Chiwenga. In one of his recordings, he says, the history we are taught, it's as if this country was fought for by Zanla and Zanu and the Shona people. He says, no. The Ndebele people already fought before even the Shona people were involved in fighting the white settlers, successfully so. We have fought. Somebody makes a point to me as I was preparing to present here. He says, the Ndebele people fought. That is why eventually there was a Lancaster. His Lancaster, he means Matopo, where we sat down with the whites because it was a war and we had to come up with some coexistence of some sort. Whereas what happened in Mashonaland was that I think Nehanda and Kakubi, I think, had to be beheaded because it was an insurrection. They did not fight a war. We fought a war, and when you fight a war, like what happened eventually at Lancaster, you had two armies meet at Lancaster, discuss and see, or two nations discuss and see the best way forward. I command you, my Mtwakazi people, the descendants of the great kingdom. You are in a war. Stop deceiving yourself. Stop lying to yourself. Stop allowing yourself to be divided. Stop going against those that have your best interest at heart. It is necessary that in Matebeleland, in Bulawayo in particular, here's another point that I must make as I close. They always say Bulawayo is what it is because it's a metropolitan seat. It is not true that Bulawayo can be more metropolitan than Harare. And yet in Harare, we don't see anyone coming from Matebeleland amount to anything. We don't see that. This Triple C here in Bulawayo, self-proclaimed, the leader is Shoko, the deputy leader is Zuripi. It can't be. Why don't we see that in Harare? Because it is the metropolitan of Zimbabwe. We are being divided. We are being exploited. We are being oppressed. We are being taken advantage of on behalf of your resources. Your children's future is being destroyed right in front of our eyes, and nobody is doing anything about it. You are being given some boogeymen to chase after, run after Chabang, run after Phugeni. They are bringing Zanu by the back door. There's no Zanu which is coming here. Our people must stand up and resist Zanu, and resist even the surrogates of Zanu, and resist even Zanuism. What is Zanuism? Zanuism is reducing our people to second, third, fourth, fifth class citizens in favor of the Shona people to preside over us and our issues. I thank you, Program Director, and everyone in the audience. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator. That was quite an insightful presentation. History, nation, and then what is currently happening, exactly where the issues are, and you find like projected into what should us as a nation values and also acting in solidarity do. And I think you defined quite clearly what the challenges are for the nation, and where there is a complete need for us to act in unison, just like